Hi, welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all of the places you can find me should be linked in the description box just below this video. Welcome to my weekly chat about my adventures in knitting and spinning and crochet. I hope you are well today. It is my usual Monday recording day, and as you can see I am starting, as has become a little bit of tradition in lockdown, at the beach, which seems a bit of a oxymoron, doesn't it? I'm in lockdown but I'm outside. If you've watched for a while, you know that I am very lucky to have a beach less than 10 minutes walk from my house, so as part of my daily exercise I can come down here. And my beach is a pebbly beach, and some of it is not easily accessible if you've got, you know, pushchairs, little kids, that sort of stuff. So I can usually find a nice quiet spot to sit and chat for a while. And I've literally just only seen one dog walker this morning. Let me swing you around and you can see behind me the beach is empty today. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I appreciate you spending some time with me. I know there are lots of YouTube channels out there and lots of stuff to do just in life in general, so I always appreciate you taking some time out of your weeks to spend with me. I did bring a couple of my finished objects with me. Let's chat about some stuff that I've been making. So I'm going to start with crochet, because crochet is one of the reasons that I'm actually here at the beach, because I'm doing a little bit of foraging on the beach to hopefully enable me to find some things to finish off the crochet projects that I've been making this weekend. If you have followed for a while, you know that I love crochet, but I don't always get to do a lot of it because the action that I use for crocheting irritates my wrist. But I really fancied doing something a little bit different with my crochet this week. I've got a couple of crochet blankets on the go, and I have recently bought that lovely crocheted wreaths book from Anna Nikiperowicz, and I really want to start a project from that, but none of that was really sort of talking to me this week. I really fancied just stretching my skills, because although I'm a competent crocheter, I haven't really dabbled in a lot of the crochet techniques. So I was thinking about some of the things that I hadn't done with crochet, and I know there's Tunisian crochet, tapestry crochet, mosaic crochet, there's all sorts of techniques that I hadn't tried before, and I decided to have a little go at some mosaic crochet, which is if you've never heard of it before, it's a type of colour work crochet. I didn't want to invest a lot of time, so I hopped onto Ravelry, had a look at some patterns, and there were a couple of really nice blanket patterns, but I've already got a couple of crochet blankets on the hooks, so I didn't want to embark on another big project. Instead I came across a lovely little pattern called, and I'm going to butcher this name, it's a Spanish pattern I believe, or a Spanish language pattern anyway, La Cuchi or La Cuqui. I'll write it on the screen. I've never been to Spain, which is probably quite unusual for a Brit. Never had any kind of exposure to Spain or the Spanish language, so all of you Spanish speakers out there, you can have a little chuckle. The pattern was just a really cute little sort of wall hanging, and the idea is you put a little sort of succulent plant or something in it. It's like a little pocket, so I shall show you what I made. So here it is. So yeah, as you can see, a little pocket there on the front, and this panel on the front is the mosaic crochet technique, so a way of using two different colours to create a lovely little design. I chose to put like a gradient into my design on the first little pocket that I made. I'm not sure entirely how successful that is, because I think it maybe detracts slightly. This is sort of like a chevron type pattern, but I think that gets a little bit lost in the gradient yarn that I chose. These are all cotton yarns. The main sort of cream colour that I used is some Peyton's Cotton DK, and I helped myself to a ball of that from the stock that I have in the shop. I run a bricks and mortar yarn shop for anyone who is new. And then the coloured cottons here are from a really lovely little tube of tiny weeny little balls of cotton yarn that I purchased from a shop here in the UK called Tiger. I didn't bring any of the bits and pieces with me, but when I get home, if I remember, I'll show you what I mean. I wanted to use those, and I thought doing this would help use those up, but I hardly touched any of those mini balls. I've still got plenty left. Yes, that was my first attempt, and then you obviously sew the front panel and the back panel together and add some fringing, and then I enjoyed it so much, and it was such a quick little project. The pattern had 2 different mosaic designs, so I decided to make the second, and for this one I did stick to the one colour, and I think maybe you can see side by side perhaps what I mean about the sort of like mosaic pattern standing out a little bit more in the one colour design. So yes, they are really fun little hanging pockets, and so the reason I brought them down with me is because I needed to find some little pieces of wood to make a hanging from these. And you might have watched my beachcombing video a little while ago. I brought home lots of pieces of driftwood, but they were all on the larger side. So as I've been wandering down the beach this morning, I've collected several little twigs that I hope might be useful. So I'm going to have a play around before I go home, because I don't want to take umpteen little bits of wood home with me, because James is already rolling his eyes over the stuff that I brought home last time. That kind of works pretty well, doesn't it? Might need to trim that down a bit, I don't know. Have a faff around with that. That one's perfect. So yes, my beach combing this morning was for some finishings for my mosaic crochet, and this technique was definitely not as hard as I thought it might be, because you're only ever working with one colour per row, and you do this kind of interesting technique where you are either doing sort of solid stitches or chains, and then working into those in different ways to create this colour work effect. So yeah, mosaic crochet. I'm really glad that I had a little play around with that at the weekend. It was a nice fun diversion, and as I say, these projects were really quick. They're only small. I think the original pattern has them made in 4-ply cotton, so they'd be even smaller, but I went for double knit cotton for mine. Yeah, that's hanging a bit better now I've threaded it through those outer loops. So probably 15-20 centimetres across in total. I'm not sure if I will actually put a plant pot in there, but I will definitely hang them on my craft room raw, and I think maybe I will stuff them full of minis or something. They will find a use, and as I say, a fun little diversion. And I made the 2. I started on Saturday afternoon and I'd finished by Saturday night, so yeah. The back piece was really easy, just lots of treble crochets or double crochets if you're in the US. Before I share with you the final bit of footage that I took at the beach this morning, I thought, now I'm home, I thought I'd show you properly the yarns that I used in my little hanging pockets. As you can see, I did manage to find another similar stick down on the beach this morning. So I have these 2 really fun mosaic pockets to hang on the wall. So yes, I've got a little basket full of bits and pieces next to me, things that I want to show you. Let me just sort them. So the main background yarn that I used was the Patterns DK cotton, or the Patons, 100% cotton yarn, and this is the cream colourway, can't remember the shade. And then the contrast colours were these little balls of cotton. So this is what I was trying to explain to you down on the beach. I bought several of these from a shop here in the UK called Tiger, and they just came in little gradient type tubes. I got a blue one, a green one, a pink one, and I think greys as well. And when I saw them, they were just £1 for a tube, and you know, I don't need cotton yarn because I have a shop. I've got access to cotton yarn, but who could resist these yummy little candy-like balls of cotton? When I thought about the idea of working this one in a gradient, I'd hoped that I'd use up quite a lot of that yarn, but ha ha ha. I'm laughing at myself because, as you can see, I've got loads left and it only used a little bit of each colour. Even with the orange that I used in this one and in this one, there's still a fair amount left. So yeah, I think that's enough waffling about my 2 little mosaic crochet pieces. Next on to knitting, because I have brought one of my knitting finished objects with me as well. This I meant to show you as a work in progress last week. You might remember me saying that I'd left a project downstairs and I wasn't going to go and get it. But for long time followers, my project is probably not going to be a surprise, because I made another gnome. You getting fed up with seeing these gnomes from me yet? A couple of weeks ago I'd spun up some samples on my spindles of just some naturally coloured yarns, different little samples and bits and pieces that I'd found when I was clearing out my craft room, and they looked perfectly camouflaged here on my pebbly beach in South Wales. And so someone suggested that I might want to make a naturally coloured gnome, and so of course, you know, I had to take up that challenge. So I've used a slightly different pattern than usual. This is the gnome, pun intended, and as always it's a design by Sarah Shearer, who is Imagined Landscapes. She's got quite a few different gnome patterns that are available to purchase over on Ravelry. And this one has a really fun textured hat. So at various points while you're constructing the hat, you do these tuck stitches to make this sort of like crinkled textured effect. So my hat was made from all of those natural samples that I made. I did add one other sample that I had in my hand spun stash, which is this large section here was a naturally coloured yarn that I had from a sample that was given to me in a little kit from the spinner's stash. And I'm actually really glad I had this, because there are quite a few rows in this hat compared to like the small gnome pattern that I usually make, and so I needed that good chunk of yarn to enable me to actually make this project. So all of those little natural samples went into the making of the hat. And then for the body, I used, little pause there for a walker to pass by, I didn't think she'd want to be in the video. So yes, Nellie and Eve, this was a Kent Romney BFL mix, I think the label said, and it's this beautiful very sort of subtle muted green colour, which kind of reminded me of the sort of algae type seaweed stuff that we get here on the beach, a bed of rocks that sort of collect the seaweed and the algae, and it's got that sort of greeny tinge to it. So yes, I thought that that would be a great colour for the body. I used that yarn entirely, so I had to go back to what was left from that Spinner's Stash Natural to finish off the body, and I used all of that colour as well, which meant that she has different colour arms. So the arms are made from the yarn that I showed off last week, I think, which was the little sample that I carded from some naturally coloured fibre with some silk waste. So she's got some rainbow tweedy bits in her arms, which are really fun. She's very much a mishmash of different little samples of hand spun. The gnome in the pattern has this really fun sort of fringed beard, it's called, made from yarn and the nose is made as part of the beard in the pattern. I had these gorgeous dyed locks in my stash that were sent to me by my lovely friend Jeanette. Hi Jeanette, if you're watching. And there was some beautiful greens and aquas in there, which I thought were a bit seaweedy to go with my kind of like beachy type theme, although I'm not sure if she now looks like she belongs to the beach or she's more a wild woman of the woods, but whatever way, I really like how it turned out. I basically just folded the locks over and stitched them on with a bit of cotton, and then I made the nose as per like the normal Never Not Gnoming pattern. A couple of little modifications, but I think she turned out pretty well. In my video where I chatted about how the colours, the natural colours reminded me of the rocks on the beach, someone commented that this gnome should be a beach gnomer, which is stuck in my head, particularly as I put up that beach combing video. So yes, my beach gnomer is finished, and I'm really pleased with how she turned out. I think that's everything I brought with me to the beach to chat to you about. So I think it's time for me to pack up and head off to work for a couple of hours, and then I shall record the rest of this video showing you my works in progress when I get home later. I hope you enjoyed the footage from the beach this morning. As you can see, I'm now back home. On the way home from the beach, I had to briefly pop into the supermarket to pick up some bits and pieces, and I treated myself to a bunch of flowers. If you happened to watch my journaling vlog in the week, you'll know that today, Monday, the 4th, is my mum's birthday. My mum passed away many years ago, but I thought I'd treat myself to a little bunch of flowers in celebration. I was hoping to get some tulips because they were my mum's favourite, but they didn't have any, which was a shame, but In fact, this was the only bunch of flowers they had left, but I was grateful to get something. I'd switch from my usual recording spot and set up so I could have flowers in the background. Right, so on with the knitting segment. I have got 3 works in progress to show you, one of which is a brand new cast on. So the first work in progress is my Chances wrap, which is my oldest work in progress. So I've shown this off recently because it's a project that I'm trying to concentrate on at the moment, and I've actually bound off for the main body of the shawl now, so it's going to be impossible to show you, as I tried to do this before, but this wrap is huge. It smells gorgeous as well. It's in a bag with a lavender pouch that was given to me by the lovely Anita, who is Gaga Knits here on YouTube, and the bag just smells heavenly. Let me try and fish it out. So when we were at was it when we were at Wonderwall last year that you gave me these, Anita? I think it was. Oh, they still smell heavenly, and so that's been living in my project bag along with this knit. So yes, I bound off, and then the pattern advises you to block the shawl. So I gave it a soak, and I struggled to block it because last week we had quite a few grey days. The sun has come back here to South Wales now. It's a lovely day here today, perfect for drying giant shawls today. But anyway, I didn't have any floor space that was long enough to lay this out in its entirety, so I had to soak it and then fold it in half, which is not ideal, but it did the job. So now I am going back along the bottom edge and adding an I-cord edge to the shawl, and I've chosen the fabulous Cornstalks colourway from Yantan Tetherer Yarns to do my edging. I've got a fair amount left of all 4 of the colours that I've used in the shawl, but I thought that bright fun edging would be the perfect finish for this shawl. My I-cord edge has been a bit hit and miss to do with how I've picked up the stitches. It looks pretty neat and tidy from the front, but on the back there there's a few bits, I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but there's a line of stitches there where I kind of wasn't quite in the rhythm of picking up my stitches yet. The different sections are different types of brioche. The edges in each section have kind of varied a little bit, so it's taking me some time to work out the best place to pick up the stitches, but I'm not going to rip back and, you know, fix any minor little errors. A stitch out of place here and there is really not going to show when this is wrapped up and being worn. I have got, so this little bit here I started yesterday, so from here to where my needles are hanging out here took me probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and I've still got, that's the halfway point. So I've still got all this to go, so I reckon it's probably going to take me all week on and off to get this I-cord onto the edge of the shawl. It'll be totally worth it though, because I love this strip of yellow on the end. I'm using double points. It's squished up in one of my DPN holders. I don't use double points lots. I have a couple of double pointed needle cases, DPN cozies, and I can't find my longest one at the moment, so I'm wondering if it's stashed away on another project. But this one is from Coco and Flora. It's for a slightly shorter DPN than I'm using here, but it's doing the job of keeping my stitches secure. The pattern recommends that you use a long circular to pick up a bunch of stitches and then go along and bind off, but I've decided just to use DPNs. To do the bind off, you knit 3 stitches and then you slip knit the end stitch together with one stitch that you've picked up on the edge, and then you have to slide the stitches you've worked back onto the working needle, which would be the long circular, which is fine, absolutely fine. But I have found that for me, I find it easier just to pick the stitches up one at a time, because once I've knit my little I-cord row, I can then go in and pick up the next stitch, so it's already just hanging there. I don't have to slide these stitches anywhere other than down the other end of the needle. I'm not having to push them back onto an entirely separate needle, just finding that a little bit quicker for me. this is going to be my main focus this week, is to get this shawl, which is currently my oldest work in progress on the needles, off of the needles. My second work in progress is one of my 12 cast-ons, and I don't think I've shown this on the channel here since I cast on. I have been working on it on and off though. It's my Normal People sweater, which is a pattern designed by Charlie Button Designs over on Ravelry, and you'll find Charlie as Yarn Ambassador here on YouTube and also on Instagram. It's living in a crochet bag that a friend of mine made me a very long time ago. But I've been knitting on this as my Zoom knit night project. I don't think we've actually had a knit night, we've mostly been chatting in the day, but when I've been chatting, and Charlie is one of the people that I chat with on Zoom, while we've been having our chats every now and then, I've been working on this project. So I've actually joined the shoulders and finished the front and the back as per the pattern. When you last saw this project, it was way down here where the rainbow marker is, and so as you can see, I've actually put in a fair bit of work to get to this point. I just haven't really shown it on the videos because it's just been a little bit here, a little bit there, and I didn't realise quite how much it had grown. The pattern starts with a provisional cast on, so at some point I will be going back and adding some length to this sweater. But for now, I'm going to work on the neckline, I think. So the pattern has a, is it a funnel neck, a turtleneck? What do you call that sort of big rolled neck? Words won't get to me. What is that called? Can't remember. So I'm considering whether I want to do that neck or if I want to just make a normal sort of ribbed neckline to this sweater. I think I'm going to go for the nice big sort of squishy turtleneck because that's what drew me to the pattern in the first place. So I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do the sleeves, and then I'm going to see how much yarn I have left to figure out how much length I can add to this project. So yeah, really pleased to have some progress on that. But yes, Normal People sweater. I'm using some Debbie Bliss, this is Old Stash, Blue Face Leicester Aran, and I have no idea whether this is still in production, but it's the teal colourway, shade 46019, or is that 480? Put your glasses on, I don't know. 46019, I was right the first time. Who needs glasses? So yes, I've got plenty of this left at the moment. I think I've still got a whole bag of 10 lurking, so I've got plenty of yarn to play with. It's an Aran weight yarn, so it knits up pretty quickly, and yeah, at the weekend I did the 3 needle bind off to join the shoulders and get to this point. So before our next Zoom knit chat, I think I'm going to pick up the next stitches so that I'm ready to get going on that for the next time we meet. My final knitting work in progress is a new cast on, and again I popped up a little vlog about this cast on last week. It's the Outra sweater, Outra, I must figure out how to say this, by Skein-Deer, O-T-R-A, and it's a really simple colour work yoke and then plain stockinette body. And I decided to treat myself to some new yarn for this project, and I think I showed the yarn off in last week's vlog. It's the onion nettle yarn that I picked up in this sort of black colourway, and I want to contrast that with some of my hand spun yarn that I recently finished. This is a Shetland and Gotland cross blend of fibre that I spun. So I cast on with abandon, and I chatted about it a little bit in the vlog, but this is my cast on so far. It looks really strange. It's a really interesting construction, and I've basically cast on for the very top of the sweater, so across the shoulders, and I'm going to be putting in some steeks for the arm holes, and I need to cast on some stitches for the steek on this side, and then I'm ready to get going, I think, with the colourwork pattern chart. But I wanted to just practice steeking with this particular yarn. The onion yarn is a mix of wool, I think it's 70% wool and 30% nettle, and it feels almost like more akin to cotton than wool in my hands. It's got that sort of like wool fuzziness to it, but it doesn't have a lot of bounce or stretch to it, and I just wanted to check on that it would be okay for steeking. So I knit myself a little swatch. That led to a couple of interesting thoughts as well, which I'll chat about in a minute. But I knit a swatch in the round and then I steeked it, so I cut it open. On Sunday I had a bit of a disastrous recording day. I tried to record footage of me drawing the winners for the giveaway, and I forgot to press record, and I tried to record me snipping into my knitted swatch, and I forgot to press record as well. So the recording gods were not on my side on Sunday. I took that as a sign that I needed to take a day off from recording. But anyway, my steek seems to have gone pretty well. I did a reinforced crochet steek, so I went up the side of the yarn with some cotton. I probably could have done with choosing a slightly thicker yarn to do my steek, but it was just what I had to hand. So I put the reinforcement in and then snipped up the middle, and it seems to be holding together pretty well. There are a few ends, as you often get with steeking, but I've been sort of spreading and tugging and putting this through its paces since I've cut it. Nothing seems to be unravelling or coming undone, which is great. So obviously if this were the real thing, I'd be folding this edge over and sewing it down on the inside. So yes, I feel pretty confident that I can go ahead and carry on with this sweater. The reason that I ended up taking pause and doing this swatch was because obviously with steeking you're cutting, you're knitting, and once you've cut it you've kind of reached the point of no return really. On any other piece of knitting which has got a sort of like one piece construction, you can easily unpick and unravel the finished thing if you don't like it, and I really like this, how this hand spun turned out, so I just wanted to make sure that I would be happy with how this was working before I carried on and took the plunge and continued with the sweater. My hand spun yarn is slightly thicker than the nettle yarn, which I knew going into the knitting, but I figured they would work okay together, and I think they do. I had a moment of doubt, so I started down here in my swatch. I was knitting this way, and a lot of the motifs on the Outre are short, sort of simple repeats, and this sort of like stepped pattern in the middle here, I was noticing obviously with my thicker yarn, it wasn't quite as detailed as it looked in the pattern sample. Like what am I trying to say? The colour work sections didn't look quite as crisp. I think that's because my hand spun is a little bit thicker than the background yarn. So I wondered if, because I knit my colour work in two hands, I wondered if I swapped the yarns over, so which yarn I was holding in which hand, whether that would make a difference to the colour work and mitigate for the fact that my hand spun is thicker than the background yarn. And as you can see, for me, working in colour work, which hand I hold the yarn in makes quite a big difference. So this section down the bottom here is the same pattern as in the middle here, but I swapped the yarns around, and I think you can see the orange is not quite as sort of overpowering in this as the top one. So that was quite an interesting experiment. However, I think I actually like this section better than this bottom section. I like that the orange is quite predominant, and that the colour work is not probably quite as crisp as down here. It's a little bit fuzzy, and I think that kind of like reflects the loveliness of the fibres in that hand spun yarn. So I think I'm going to stick to my original and usual way of holding yarns for the colour work section, so that my orange is much more dominant. And in the sweater the colour work is only in a short section at the top of the sweater, so I think it'll be quite nice to make as much of a feature of that hand spun yarn as I can. This is so far living in this lovely project bag that was gifted to me by Lucy. I think it was Lucy. She used to make bags, she doesn't make them anymore, and I got this in a Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted many years ago when I first sort of rediscovered knitting and the joy of project bags. So yeah, it's really nice to be using this one. It's quite a nice sort of long bag, so I think I'll be able to keep the sweater project in here for quite some time. Obviously I don't have all like 10 balls or whatever it was, 8 balls of my onion yarn in here, but I will fill it up with a few more. On to the last section for today, which is spinning. I haven't done tons and tons of spinning this week, but I have made some progress. So first off, I plied up the yarn that I showed as singles on the bobbin last week. This is from Curio Yarns, part of her Monster Mash trilogy colourway, and it's on a Blueface Leicester base. So I've finished spinning and plying the first colour in that, and yeah, it's really, I know it's really bright, and it is that bright in real life, but yeah, it's lovely. There's still a nice depth of colour in there, and this yarn has probably turned out a little bit thicker than I would have liked for the project that I was hoping to do. It puffed up quite a bit in the sort of soaking and finishing, but that's okay. I think I haven't actually measured my meterage yet, but I'm pretty sure I will come up with a nice project for these 3 yarns once they are finished, even if it's not the shawl that I originally thought I might make. So I've spun up the second colour in the trilogy. So this is a lovely sort of charcoal colour, and it goes right through to black, and then lightens up to a bluey grey. It's really, really lovely. So that's I finished spinning the singles last night, so hopefully I'll get to ply that this evening. And then the other yarn that I finished was the yarn that I carded up on my hand carders, and I'm still in the process of editing the video about this. I think I've been yammering on about it for 2 weeks now, just haven't quite got that last bit of video recorded that I want to be able to finish off and put it up as a yarn and yarn extra. But I blended this yarn on my hand carders, so it was just a natural wool. I'm not sure what the wool was, natural sort of brown colour, and into that I mixed some silk waste and blended those together and spun them up long draw on my spinning wheel, and it's made for a really nice, like, light bouncy yarn, and I think it's going to be really fun to knit up this hank of it. I've already used a little bit in the gnome that I showed you earlier, and you get these really sort of fun pops of colour. Where is she? Here she is. Not sure how well it showed up in the sunlight at the beach this morning, but you can see little pops of colour coming through. After I recorded with the gnome, I was trying to take a picture of her on the beach, and she fell off into the wet sand, so I needed to dip the end of her hat in some water and try and clean her off. Mucky little beach comber. That is everything that I've been making this week. I do have an acquisition to show you. Last week would have been Wonderwool Wales, which is the big fibre festival here in Wales, which of course was cancelled. And usually I would go to that festival and treat myself to lots of lovely yarn and fibre. Because I've not been working, obviously the shop's closed, I didn't have tons of money to spend, although they did do a virtual Wonderwool event. But I did treat myself to 2 skeins of Cartrev yarn, and Cartrev is a lovely Welsh yarn, and the company is run by my dear friends Jenny and Zoe. They launched their new 4-ply version of Cartrev, so last year they launched the double knit version, and this year they launched the 4-ply, and this is 100% Welsh wool, 67% Welsh mule, and 33% Blueface Leicester. And I got a skein each of the colours Natural, and Glow. And these will eventually become a mid-coast sweater by Jennifer Steingass. I've bought these 2 as my contrast colours for the yoke, and when I'm able to save up, I will be buying several skeins of the Flam colourway, which is a lovely bright orange, and the bright orange will be my main colour for that sweater, and then these 2 will be the contrast in the yoke. So yes, I will be building up that sweater quantity over time as and when I'm able to afford to do so. They've got lots of lovely yarn left in their web shop, so I'll put a link to it below, and if you fancy treating yourself to some lovely locally produced Welsh yarn, then I can highly recommend Cartref. It's a really nice yarn for colour work as well. It's non-superwash, just a beautiful, beautiful woolly feel to it. Yes, we have finally reached the end. As I say, I think this might be a bit of a long one. I hope I have enough memory on my phone to get it uploaded to YouTube. I sometimes struggle with that. Thank you all so much for spending time with me this week. I really do love all of the interactions that we have, both here on YouTube and those who message me on Instagram and Ravelry as well. It brings me a lot of joy at this difficult time to connect with you all. I think I'm going to take my Chances wrap out into the garden and enjoy some sunshine and some knitting for the rest of the afternoon. So I hope that you have some lovely plans for the rest of your day too. Until we get to spend time together again, I hope you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.